So we're going to get into this story about Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley recently had an interview with Meet the Press. They've been having some cringe interviews lately where she feels that Trump has always been his worst enemy, and she's going to explain to you why she has decided to stay in the race. What's really interesting, I looked at the poll numbers and I told you that Nikki Haley is not polling well in South Carolina at all, but she is vowing to stay in the race. It kind of gives me Elizabeth Warren vibes from 2020 when Elizabeth Warren decided to stay in the race, Super Tuesday. Now Nikki Haley is saying that same thing. I kid you not. Let's go ahead and get into it.
And joining me now is Ambassador Nikki Haley. Ambassador Haley, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thanks so much, Kristen, for having me.
Well, we really appreciate your being here. As you know, former President Donald Trump has called on you to get out of this race. The RNC says it's time for Republicans to unify around Mr. Trump. What is your response to this apparent pressure campaign against you?
Look, I mean, he can't bully his way through the nomination. I think that, you know, it's not surprising that he is surrounded by the political elite. But let's keep in mind, the political elite has gotten nothing done for us in stopping the wasteful spending, has gotten nothing done to secure the border, has gotten nothing done to keep us more safe as we see wars around the world. And so, look, that's exactly what we don't want. I mean, the reason the political elite are upset and the members of Congress are upset is because I've pushed for term limits. I've pushed for mental competency tests. I've said if they don't get a budget out on time, they shouldn't get paid. So, look, I have fought this political class my entire life, and I'd much rather be fighting for the people than fighting for the elected officials in D.C.
Ambassador.
So I'm sorry. So this is Nikki Haley being disingenuous. She's not fighting for the people. She's not fighting for the people. You know, everyone's saying that now. Everyone's just like, I'm out there. I'm the only one out there fighting for the people. Nikki Haley is corporate. Nikki Haley is bought. Nikki Haley belongs to the military industrial complex. She's not fighting for the people. Let's continue.
Do you think, just going back to the RNC calling for the party to unify around Trump, which happened, by the way, during the New Hampshire primary before the polls had even closed, do you think the RNC has been an honest broker in this case?
I mean, clearly not. If you're going to go and basically tell the American people that you're going to go and decide who the nominee is after only 2 states have voted. I mean, 48 states out there. This is a democracy. The American people want to have their say in who is going to be their nominee. We need to give them that. I mean, you can't do that based on just 2 states. And not only that, it's 1,215 delegates to reach the nomination. Donald Trump has 32. I have 17. So let's let this play out. Let's do what we need to. I mean, we saw South Carolinians. We had 1,500 people last night in Greenville County. And I think that Americans want to be able to make this decision themselves. I don't think this is the place of the RNC to do it. I think that Trump overstepped when he pushed them to do it. And I think that's why he's had to back down. And that was.
Let's pause here for a second. So you see another similarity of the RNC and the DNC now, right? Nikki Haley is complaining that the RNC is just basically saying, like, no, Trump's going to be the nominee. And Nikki Haley is saying we need to let this play out. We live in a democracy. I told you guys before, we don't have a true democracy. If we did, something like this wouldn't even be an issue. But also, this is no different from what the DNC is doing, right? The DNC announced last year that Joe Biden will be the nominee. They're not really entertaining any of his challengers. They're not going to receive any delegates. So this is another example to show you how both parties are similar. They both have their picks. Nikki Haley was chosen by the donor class. Don't get me wrong. There are some Democrats that want Nikki Haley. And then you have Trump, who basically Trump's MAGA base is very strong. As much as mainstream media pundits will tell you that the Trump base died, obviously we see that is not true. That's not the case. But this is another example where you see the similarities between the parties, both corporate, both belonging to the military industrial complex, and both deciding who the candidate, the nominee will actually be.
The right thing to do was to back down.
And just, do you have actual knowledge and awareness that he pushed the RNC to do that and then pulled back?
I mean, we know exactly the people that pushed it are his people. And I know that during the debates, I mean, he was pushing Ronna McDaniel to stop the debates. He was calling her every other day. He's been pushing them to pay for his lawsuits and all of these other things. But at the end of the day, this is not about the RNC. This is about the American people. This is not.
Another similarity here. She said that Trump, it was him and his people that pushed for this with the RNC. No, don't want to have the debates. Let's just continue on. I'm going to be the nominee. And if we look at the Democratic Party, Biden and his people pushed the DNC to say, nope, I'm the nominee. That's it. We're not going to do any debates. The Republican Party was the GOP was at least willing to have debates, right? But it's a little bit different because Trump is not actually the incumbent. He's not sitting in the White House at this point in time. But just another similarity.
Not about a political party deciding who they want to be the nominee. When I ran for governor, there were 5 candidates. I was far from the nominee. I was the one, I ran against a lieutenant governor, an attorney general, a congressman, and a state senator. They did the same thing to me then. I won then. I'm going to win now.
Let's talk about your path forward. As you know, Trump has a double-digit lead in the polls. He secured the endorsement of a lot of the top officials in your state.
Before we get to that, let me talk about something that Nikki Haley just said. Yeah, when she ran for governor in South Carolina, she was not the fave, but she was able to win. The difference is there's quite a bit of people in South Carolina that are not too happy with Nikki Haley after her governorship. This is the part that she's not telling Meet the Press here. For example, one of the criticisms that came towards Nikki Haley, she flip-flopped when it came to the Confederate flag. At one moment during her governorship, she said that it's about heritage. It means one thing to one people. It means something different to other. But at the end of the day, it's about, heritage and those who had some type of heritage in reference to the Civil War, right? But after the shooting from Dylann Roof, Nikki Haley changed her position on the Confederate flag and said the flag needs to come down. And it was not a surprise. Some of Nikki Haley's supporters turned on her when she made that position. I have family in South Carolina. I'm here to tell you guys, when I tell you that a lot of people in South Carolina like Donald Trump, trust me, a lot of people in South Carolina like Donald Trump, more so than they like Nikki Haley, and she was the state's governor. You can just look at the polls and see the difference. He's beating her by double digits. She is being blown out by Donald Trump in South Carolina right now. It's not even close. And it's not even funny. But she says she's going to stay in the race through Super Tuesday.
Do you need to win South Carolina, your home state, in order to win the nomination?
Well, let's first talk about the people that he surrounded himself in South Carolina. Yes, he got the endorsement of the governor, but that's the same governor that I defeated when I ran for governor. Yes, he got the endorsement of the political class in South Carolina, but that's the same group that I forced to have to show their votes on the record. It's the same group that I forced to pass ethics reform where they had to disclose their income. It's the same group where I vetoed $500 million of pet projects that I didn't think taxpayer dollars should go to. So there's no surprise there that the political elite are surrounding him there. Trump has become an insider. That's what it comes down to, is he's more interested in satisfying the elected class than he is in satisfying the people.
So are you, Nikki. This is the funny part, is that she talks as though she's not an insider. She is an insider. She's a politician. She actually had military contractors. She was working for military contractors. Nikki Haley is an insider. So it's funny to me that she's talking about this. She's speaking about Donald Trump as though he's the elite one. He's the insider. He's the one that's cozy with the politicians, but she's the same way. She's not different.
Comes to South Carolina, look, we wanted to be strong. And I think we started with 2% in Iowa. We ended up with 20%. We got to New Hampshire. We needed to do better than that. And we did. We got 43% of the vote. Now we're going into South Carolina. We need to be stronger than what we did in New Hampshire. And so that's certainly what we need to do. But it's not just that we need to be stronger, Kristen. Trump needs to be stronger. He's not getting the independent vote. He's not getting a segment of the Republicans. And so he's got some work to do as well.
He's blowing you out the water. This is funny, you guys. I'm not kidding you. If you look at the polls, he is blowing you out of the water in South Carolina right now. And she says that he needs to do better. Okay.
Let me just make sure we get an answer, though, Ambassador Haley, because this is your home state. You were governor in the state of South Carolina. Do you need to win your home state in order to stay in this race? Is it do or die?
I think I need to do better than I did in New Hampshire. So this is a building situation.
But
it's not about which state you get and which state you don't.
Do you need to actually win? I hear you saying you need to do better, but don't you need to win your home state to show that you can win a state, win your home state, and really put some delegates on the map for yourself?
Well, we've got 17 delegates. He's got 32. I'd say that's pretty good to start. What I do think I need.
Okay, so Nikki Haley doesn't want to answer that question, so I'll answer it for her. Yes. Nikki Haley needs to win South Carolina in order to have a strong showing that she has a chance of actually being the nominee. She doesn't want to say that. She's already BSing you. Just pay attention. She's already a politician. She's already BSing you. The reality is this. There's something about South Carolina that is a game changer in reference to the primary process, whether it's the Republican Party or whether it's the Democratic Party. Remember, it was South Carolina that changed the race for Joe Biden. He was not at the top of the list. Bernie Sanders had won New Hampshire. He won Nevada. Some argue that he won Iowa. Pete Buttigieg actually announced early. That was on purpose, by the way. We knew Pete wasn't going to do well in South Carolina. I told you I lived there, right? South Carolina changed the race for Joe Biden. And people can kind of, understand, I didn't do that well in New Hampshire, or I did okay in Iowa, et cetera. But if by the time you get to South Carolina, again, it has the oldest electorate and it is a red state. So it's a little bit different from the Democrat primary process in reference to South Carolina, because the Democrats are not going to win South Carolina in the general. The Republican Party will win South Carolina in the general. So Nikki Haley, if you cannot win South Carolina in the primary, yes, it is over for you. And I think it's a waste of time for you to stay in until Super Tuesday. I'm just keeping it real with you guys.
To do is I need to show that I'm building momentum. I need to show that I'm stronger in South Carolina than New Hampshire. Does that have to be a win? I don't think that necessarily has to be a win, but it certainly has to be better than what I did in New Hampshire, and it certainly has to be close. And so that's what we're focusing on. If we win, great. If not, we've got to show that we're continuing to narrow that margin along the way.
So I hear
to give people in Super Tuesday states a reason to know that they can continue to see and have us fight on.
So I hear you say.
Pause. So she thinks even if she loses in South Carolina, that if she gets the Super Tuesday, if she has a strong showing in South Carolina, but let's say she still loses, which I think she will, if she can get to Super Tuesday, that's going to motivate people to say, yeah, let me go out there and vote for Nikki Haley. That didn't happen for other people that were in the Democrat primary process in 2020. Let's remember this again. South Carolina is a game changer. You had Bernie Sanders, who was actually leading the primary. Then came South Carolina. Jim Clyburn said, everybody just go vote for Joe because we know Joe and Joe knows us. All the older black folk in South Carolina came out and supported Joe Biden. Bernie ended up in second place. Bernie went on through Super Tuesday. And a lot of us, I think, thought that's okay. Bernie's going to get some of these states for Super Tuesday. Didn't happen the way that we thought it would. Even Kyle Kulinski had to come back on Secular Talk and say that he was wrong. His prediction was wrong, right? No, because after Joe Biden won South Carolina, he went on to win a number of states for Super Tuesday, including my state of Massachusetts. So the reality is, if she does not win South Carolina, I don't see that motivating people in the other states to say, we got to get out there and show out there for no. And then what happened? Joe Biden went on and won the nomination for the Democratic Party. If Nikki Haley loses South Carolina, Donald Trump is going to go on and win the nomination for the Republican Party. This is just the reality of the situation. Nikki knows this.
You are in this regardless of the results in South Carolina through Super Tuesday, it sounds like. Here's how the Wall Street Journal editorial board is thinking about your campaign. They write, if she can remain competitive, there's an argument for Ms. Haley to stay in the race through the July convention. Mr. Trump faces a treacherous legal road, and one of the cases against him could go to trial. If he's convicted of a felony, 42% of voters in New Hampshire and nearly a third of Iowa's GOP caucus goers said Mr. Trump would be unfit for the presidency. Are you staying in this race in case Donald Trump is convicted of a crime, Ambassador?
I've never stayed in this race because of court cases. Really, I don't know what all the court cases are. I haven't paid attention to what he's won, what he's lost, what he's fighting for, any of that. What I know is, the first one came down and he spent a lot of time ranting about how he lost that court case. But the reality is every time he's talking about defending himself in court, he's not talking about getting our economy back on track. He's not talking about closing the border. He's not talking about how we're going to get our kids reading again and getting us focused again. He's not talking about.
Sorry. Maybe I have just been in a tunnel somewhere, but almost every speech we've heard Donald Trump make, hasn't he brought up the economy? Hasn't he brought up getting the economy back on track? And I'm not a Trump supporter, but I'm just debunking Nikki here. Hasn't he brought up the war issue, how these things wouldn't have happened if he would have still been in office? Am I alone here? Am I alone? Okay.
Law and order. That's the problem, is he's not talking about what the American people want. Kristen, look at what happened just in the 48 hours after the election. Here he went on he was totally unhinged, went on a rampage election night talking about revenge. Then the next day he goes and says anybody who supports me is not going to be allowed to be part of MAGA. Well, that means those people that voted for me in Iowa and New Hampshire and those people who've donated to me, really, you're going to go and say they're not in your club? You're supposed to be president representing everyone. Yeah. Then he goes and pushes the Republican Party to make him the nominee. I mean, look, he's insecure. He's threatened. He sees what's happening, and he knows these court cases are going to take him further and further away from the campaign trail. And that's what he's worried about.
And you bring up the court cases. I want to get to them, but just yes or no. Are you in this race through the convention beyond Super Tuesday? Yes or no?
As long as I keep growing per state, I am in this race. I have every intention of going to Super Tuesday. Through Super Tuesday, we're going to keep on going and see where this gets us. That's what we know we're going to do right now. I take it one state at a time. I don't think too far ahead.
When she says we're going to see where this gets us, she's talking about she's talking about other opportunities. Let's keep it real. She's talking about other opportunities. Oh, let me see if I can get some kind of cabinet position. Another military contract. Maybe. Or maybe she may be courted by No Labels. Don't be fooled. No Labels has a lot of money. Millions and millions of dollars. Maybe that's the plan. I wouldn't be surprised. Like, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if the Democratic Party didn't try to find a way to work with Nikki. Because look at these polls, son. Look at the poll. CNN's inaugural road to 270 shows Trump in a position to win the White House. Don't get mad at me. This is what the map shows. The yellow states here are toss-up. So Arizona, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, they are saying that those states in particular are a toss-up. Light blue means leaning Democrat. I mean, I don't know why Oregon is light blue. Oregon's always Democrat. I don't know about that one. But Colorado, New Mexico, Minnesota, and Virginia, and of course, New Hampshire up here is light blue. So that means they're leaning towards Joe Biden. And dark blue, of course, is like the definites. And those are the usual suspects, right? And then you have the light red states, which are leaning more in Trump's direction. Notice Michigan is one of those states now. And this is what I tried to forewarn people about, is that Joe Biden is losing in Michigan and he needs Michigan in order to win. But that is leaning more towards Donald Trump right now. North Carolina doesn't surprise me. Neither does Florida. I keep saying I'm tired of people calling Florida a swing state. I think Florida is a red state. I've been saying that for quite some time. Georgia does not surprise me either. I also said I don't think Georgia is a swing state. I think 2020 was a one-off. I think Georgia will go back to being red. But we want to focus on Arizona, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. Those will be interesting to see. But what they are saying right now, let me make sure I pull up. Oh, did I go to they showed up here? Oh, maybe it's the next one. Oh, no, this is it. Yeah. Road to 270. So anyway, as you can see, and this is another thing I've been trying to tell people, if you look at the map, the United States is actually a conservative country. And I've said this, time and time again. The U.S. is a conservative country. I'm not sure why people think it's not. Now, this is the Electoral College, though, and we do not go by the popular vote in this country. And if we went by the popular vote, then you would see that I think if you look at these areas where there's a lot more people concentrated, like obviously California, Los Angeles, you have Portland, Oregon, Seattle, Washington, Boston, Massachusetts over here, of course, New York City, things would look very differently, Chicago, that kind of thing. But this is where we're at right now. And this is what they're saying where we're headed towards. And it says right here, the first look at a potential Biden versus Trump rematch and the electoral math, each would need to capture 270 electoral votes, captures the dynamics at play 10 months before Election Day. Biden is an incumbent president with stubbornly low approval ratings, persistent questions and concerns about his ability to serve another term, and diminished support from some key components of his winning coalition from 2020. Trump is a seriously flawed candidate who has promised to govern in undemocratic ways and who has already been rejected once by the American people after serving one term as president. He faces 4 criminal indictments consisting of 91 charges related to his attempts to overturn the election, his mishandling of classified documents after leaving office and allegedly obstructing law enforcement's attempts to retrieve them, and his falsifying of business records to conceal a hush payment to keep an adult film star from going public with claims of extramarital affair, which he denies. In the weeks leading up to the 2016 election, he pled not guilty to all charges against him and maintained no wrongdoing. Now, notice they mentioned all that about Donald Trump, but you notice when they actually describe Joe Biden, they don't mention the allegations that are against Joe Biden. Tara Reade still has allegations against Joe Biden. So let's just be clear about that. But this is what we're looking at now, guys. So it will be interesting to see what happens. Neither of them are my candidate. You guys know I'll be voting third party or independent. That's what I'm rolling with. And I'm not going to let other people try to sit up here and fearmonger me either, as they always tend to do. But it is what it is. We're going to go to some of the comments here. Let me go ahead, start these. I'll come back to that one. Thank you for the super chat, New York Varsity. Let's put 2 + 2 together here. Research where people's campaign money goes when someone drops out. It is kept for a future run, given to a candidate in the race, or in a rare case, refunded. #heist. Thank you for the super chat, Sean. Sab, get Richard Wolff on to discuss Hungary as they oppose EU funding for Ukraine and EU, threatening to trash their economy in revenge. I can try to do that. It is very hard to get Professor Wolff because he's very, very busy. Sebastian says, when will Tara get justice? Exactly. Exactly. All right. We are going to, I'm right on time. We are going to start the next story, and then the guests will pop in. Thank you for that, Eric. Nikki Haley has no true supporters. Thank you for that, Nancy Insider Trading. That's funny. That's funny.